What's going on, everybody? Larry here. Happy Friday, and welcome to another new episode of Life's a Bit with Larry Mullins. Today's guest is an up-and-coming New York comedian, and she is an incredibly funny gal. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Emma Paxton. Thank you for doing this.
Sure.
Anything... If, like, social media stuff, anything like that, you want to go ahead and just get out of the way right now for anybody listening, just so...
You can find me at Emma._Paxton. I do a lot of, like, videos and fair amount of content there.
Fair amount of content. Funny stuff, though. I wanted to talk about that, because, like, I can't remember how I found you. I know we follow a lot of the same people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love when, you know, because I don't know what you did, like, before the pandemic, but, like, I love seeing, like, comedians just posting random videos. Like, I love stuff like that. Because, like, you put stuff out, like, however you can, you know? That's something, like, I would do that if I had half a brain or, you know. Because, like, my friends, like, tell me I'm funny when I'm not trying to be. But what I respect is when somebody's trying to be funny and they are funny. Like, that's, like, a talent. And, like, so, like, where do you come up with the ideas to do those? Like, do you just get an idea, like, oh, that would be funny?
A lot of them are, like, recycled bits, to be honest. So maybe I'm getting more mileage out of them. If someone were to look really deep into it, they'd be like, wait, that's also on her, like, album, and also I've seen her do that. But then again, also, like, just in everyday life, I don't really, like, sit down and write material. It's more like something will happen or something will come to me, and then I'll be like, oh, that's funny, write it down.
So is it kind of like observational too? Like, you may see something when you're out and about, or...
Yeah, or just, like, I thought of something randomly.
So, like,
or like a conversation happened and I said something funny, like, oh, write that down.
I've just, because that may be like a corny, really, like, simple question, but, like, I ask everybody that because I've always wondered, like, how the brain works. Like, where do you come up with this? Where do you come up with that? You know?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, everyone is different. So, but to me, it's, like, really easy. It's interesting that people sit down and, like, they dedicate writing time, and I just, like, don't do that. I feel like I have enough ideas that just happen randomly. But if I were to do, like, music or something, it would be more of an effort.
Yeah.
Comedy is kind of easy. You just, like, take what's already there, edit it out, make it a little bit better, practice it.
I just, because I've you know, because I've heard of people like you said, who literally sit down and write. Like, they write stuff out in a notebook, and others they just see something and that's it. There's no writing involved. And so, like, I guess, like, how do you, another silly question, how do you, like, do you just repeat it several times just to get it to the point where you memorize it, or you just do it so many times that you just remember it?
I rehearse a lot. If I'm going to do, like, a set or even a mic, I want to get it really in, like, the muscle memory. And then I've also written stuff down to see where something could be better. Maybe have, like, a better punchline, or if I start to observe what doesn't work, I'll, like, rewrite it. But mostly I kind of, like, have an idea. I'll talk it out aloud, so probably looks like I'm crazy. But then I'll kind of edit it out loud until I kind of hone it in, and then record it, listen back, see what sounds good, that kind of thing.
So that kind of stuff sounds fun. Like, do you ever, like, when something's in, like, the beginning stages, do you ever maybe test it out on some of your close friends or anything and see if they laugh at it, or you just like, hey,
go ahead.
so are you just like, hey, this sounds funny to me, I'm just gonna go with it, or do you, like, test it out? And
I guess so. Like, I'll send stuff to my boyfriend sometimes. Like, I'll usually record my voice to hear myself. and then it just kind of grows and like gets better with each like iteration, I guess.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll just like write a status update on Facebook, but some stuff is like old. One time I did a thing about jelly beans that I wrote when I was 14 years old, and I didn't have the nerve to do stand up then.
Oh wow.
And I literally did it like 4 months ago, and it worked. And I was like, wow, this is from almost 2 decades ago.
Geez, I guess I was gonna ask you, how long have you been doing it, and like when did you decide, okay, this is what I want to do?
I've been wanting to do stand up for a very long time, and I was obsessed with comedy, obsessed with stand up comedy. I always felt like I had like the inner cynical, negative, like complainery mindset.
The complainery mind. Yeah, I have a little bit of that too.
But I never had the nerve. Like I tried improv and sketch writing at Second City, like camp, but that was about it. And then let's see, I saw a stand-up comedy thing in the city. And these guys were horrible. They were just horrible. And I had that like burning desire. And I was like, I can't, like, this is so bad. If these guys can do it, I can do it. And then I was like, I'm finally going to do it. Because I'd had these like all, people have those mental blocks. Like, oh, what's going to happen if I say this? Like, I don't have a transition. Like stupid stuff that doesn't even matter. So then I started doing it like 2018. And my first like open mic went really well. Like everyone laughed just at the time I thought they would, which was really gratifying.
It's awesome.
So then I did it for a while, and then I actually had some health stuff, so I had to stop. So that sucked. And then recently I started again, like 10 months ago or so, like kind of when virtual comedy came out, and that's become like a huge thing.
Yeah. Because I wanted to ask you, because when you said the whole jelly bean bit, like when you were 14, I'm like, holy shit, like that's so wow, you were young. You were young when you were 14 when you came up with the idea for that.
Yeah, I wrote a couple like stand-up things, and I remember I was just sitting in class and I was bored. Like, why would I actually pay attention to what's going on? Might as well write comedy stuff.
That's I want to go back into the Zoom thing, but yeah, when I want to say, like, I've always loved watching and listening to stand up, but just growing up, it was normally just the bigger comics, like the huge guys that like everyone knows. I remember, geez, I want to say it was sometime in the 90s, maybe mid to late 90s. I remember seeing one of the George Carlin specials on HBO, and I was probably too young to be watching it, but I just thought it was funny, and I didn't like hardcore get into like all these New York comics and everything until like the pandemic started. It's kind of like when I just start when I'm looking for a new band to get into, like I'll just go and be like, listeners of this also like, and I just kind of went down. I just kind of went down a wormhole if I'm listening to a podcast or something, and one of my favorite comics mentions a few lesser known, I look them up, and I just kind of, and it's
Sure.
And that's the kind of stuff I've been more listening to. Not even, I'm watching. I hate 90% of what's on Netflix. That's just me personally.
For stand-up, or?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Like I'm there's a good amount of it that I do like, but a lot of it I'm just like, but I don't want to sound like a snob. I just know what makes me.
It's okay to be a snob. What don't you like?
I will. And I don't know if I feel comfortable saying, but pretty much the only things I like on Netflix, comedy wise, I'd have to say. Well, I'm a big Jerry Seinfeld fan. So, and all of his stuff on there, Taylor Tomlinson I like, Dave Chappelle, of course, and the two the stand-ups and the Degenerates. I like where like each comic has their own episode. Like I love all of those. And like I feel and that's, as far as the specials on Netflix go, that's pretty much all I really like. I mean, where there's some where I'll get a few giggles, but like where I like when I'm pretty much laughing out loud damn near the whole
Sure.
time. I take that back. I'm probably like and Bill Burr's acceptable. But like
I'm not a huge fan.
well, yeah, yeah, I think one of my close friends is not a fan of him either, and I think he's an acquired taste.
It's probably easier to be a fan of his if you're a guy. If you're a woman, like there's some stuff that's not so great that kind of is a little bit of a red flag, I'd say. And like
Yeah.
he's so full of himself. I don't know. I just like I know he's talented. Like his cynicism is funny. It's so over the top though, and
Yeah.
like I don't know. He says some kind of messed up stuff that I can't like just like kind of gloss over.
Yeah,
But I know he's like talented.
yeah, don't hate me for saying that. I mean, I'm not
No, no, I don't. It's fine.
I don't like listen to him like that. Like okay, and I can't even I don't have any of the jokes memorized, but I can see why you would say that because some of the stuff
Right.
I heard was a little questionable. I'm like, and hearing
Yeah.
you say that, I'm like, I can see why you would say that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
But he
don't know.
has made me laugh, you know, like I'm not going to say he's like a horrible comedian. It's just like he he grew up in a very different environment than I
Yeah,
did. Let's just say that.
and I don't know, like. There's no telling what makes me laugh. I mean, I like clean stuff. I like dirty stuff. It just depends on the person.
Yeah.
And I also don't like when, like say someone's entire special is just straight like dirty nonstop.
Yeah, I really hate that.
I don't like that. Like it doesn't have to be dirty and sexual the entire time. Like that's
Yeah.
just I don't
I'm a
know.
fairly like clean comic for the most part. I don't really do raunchy humor. I'm just not comfortable with it. Like
Yeah,
it's
that
weird to me that everyone is so comfortable talking about their sex life with everyone. Like I'm just not. So I would never do that.
you're like that's not normal. That's really not normal.
Right? Like to me it isn't. It's like okay, well that's and it's so like everyone does it. It's not like original or special. So I'm like if anything, I'll stand out as a girl who doesn't do that. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, like that's something like you talk with like your closest friends about. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, and
I
like if
couldn't
I want to invite my family to shows, like I don't want them to be I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want them to be uncomfortable. It's amazing to me that people are like, "Oh no, like it's fine." I'm like, "Wow, you grew up in a different household than I did." So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like the discomfort. Like why do I need more discomfort in my life? I'm usually trying to like have less discomfort all the time.
But yeah, no, like I'm very private when it comes to that stuff. So I can't imagine how someone can just get on stage in front of like a crowd of people and just air it all out like it's not even a
Yeah.
problem.
But
Like
even then, like I even question myself because I think that, but then I'm like, wait, a lot of stand up is very personal about other stuff. And like I'm fine with that. It's just like certain topics, you know,
yeah.
everyone's got their thing. So whatever.
So you're in New York?
I'm in Rochester, New York. I actually am
Yeah.
from New Jersey, like really close to New York City, but I actually moved up here like when the pandemic started. So
Where
yeah, now I'm up here.
where did you grow up?
Montclair, New Jersey.
New Jersey. Duh, I'm retarded.
It's okay.
So is there how far is Rochester from the city? Is it
It's like 5 hours or so.
oh. So is it kind of like a suburb area? Not like really rural, just like suburbs, or is it more of like a city?
Rochester is a
Yeah.
city. It's like a small city.
Is there any kind of comedy scene there? Is it mainly just do you have to go to the city
I
or
think there's a decent comedy scene here. I just don't know it very well
Mhm.
because it's a pandemic. So
Yeah, that kind of put a wrench in a lot of stuff, I imagine.
yeah.
So like the Zoom show things, I've actually only gone to one. I was like, you know what? I'm like, let me see what this is about. So I bought tickets, and I was like, I was nervous for a lot of the comics because like the one I went to, like nobody would unmute themselves, and the host was
In the
like,
audience?
yeah, the host was like, guys, unmute yourself, and I was like the first one to unmute myself. She's like, oh, you're brave, but I'm like, don't they want to hear everybody laughing? Like,
Yeah.
isn't that the point? Like, I felt so awkward for everybody. I'm like, and there was like maybe five or six others that unmuted themselves, but I'm like, come on. But it was still nice to just lay in my bed and laugh, you know?
Yeah, it is
I'd
nice.
still prefer to leave the house, but it's still cool, you know?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's obviously not a stage and lights. Like, if you need all that to feed your like whatever, but um, there's perks to it. Like, it's super easy, it's accessible. If people have like a disability or illness, it's easier for them to do stuff. Like, I don't really mind if people are not muted. If anything, it's kind of funny because like, what if you do badly and everyone was unmuted? Like, at least you don't know. Like, if you were to
Yeah,
bomb,
I get what
like,
you're saying.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it is nice when people like unmute themselves and they laugh. Um, but yeah, I like it. There's like a really big community on Facebook. There's a group called Displaced Comedians. And it's just like this really positive, like, community of all these comedians where we're getting all these online opportunities, making tons of connections that never would have happened before. So
That's awesome. So it's kind of like a network.
yeah,
Where people
totally.
like
Like
post
people
like
have,
what do people just like post gigs that are going on and
yeah,
then they
tons
can
of opportunities, tons of mics. People have made a lot of friendships, um, just like from people all around the world. It's like a really active community, unlike other Facebook groups where people like rarely post or something.
yeah. So that's awesome. I mean, do you try to do those fairly regularly or whenever they come up? I mean, are those fairly easy to get onto? I guess it all depends, right?
Shows or
Yeah.
like virtual shows.
Yeah. I mean, at least now
I've
during the
done
pandemic, I mean,
basically like you do a lot of mics and then you kind of network, and I basically just reach out to people that I know are doing shows, send over a tape, send a professional looking email. Then I've also like produced a couple shows. That was really fun. So yeah, there's a fair amount of opportunities if you really look for them and reach out.
so you said now how to now is does your boyfriend do comedy too?
No.
Okay, so how is that? Like, I wonder if, because I've always wondered, like, is he? I mean, well, you said your stuff is clean and all that, but I've always wondered, like, what the other try to how do I word this? How the what the other party like a relationship where one's a comedian, the other one's not. I always kind of wondered how like that dynamic works. Like, is he pretty cool with like what you do and?
Yeah, he's really supportive. Yeah, like I,
Is it anything where you
it's
like
funny.
work?
Like I
Are you
probably,
like working him into your material, or is it more so just?
there's a couple things, but I think he's okay with it. It's not a big deal. I think it's funny. Like I used to want to like date someone who was like, possibly a comedian or like, but then I actually, now I feel the opposite just because like guys who tend to do comedy are like, you know, I don't know, just like whatever, a little more like cruder than my style. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
really find that the most attractive quality. But then again, like being funny is so. But yeah, my boyfriend's also like a musician, so he understands like performing and being like a creative person. But yeah, he's pretty supportive. That's nice.
Well, that's good. That's good. That was a random question. Sorry if that was too personal, but
No, not
I've
at all. And
I've always wondered because I've heard of you know a relationship where both parties are comedians or they both do the same thing. Sometimes
mhm.
it's good, sometimes it's not good.
I think it would be fun. Like, it's always good to have similar interests. Like, I definitely ask, like, when I meet someone, like, who are your favorite comedians, to see if we have a similar taste. Like, that's really important to me. Um, so
So,
yeah, we had like similar tastes, so
well, that's
that
good.
helps.
So, who are your favorite comedians, or should I say, who your main inspirations, like for when you got into
Um,
this?
well, I remember being really inspired, maybe inspired by like Robin Williams special. Like my whole family would watch that. I think it was like 2001. It
Mm-hmm.
was just like amazing, and we would like recite it and watch it over and over. But my favorite comedians, Jim Gaffigan, I think is amazing, and Mike Birbiglia is one of my favorites. Um, Lately, Sebastian Maniscalco, like I don't know why, but I laugh so much watching his stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Eliza, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she's done a couple specials I think are like really amazing.
Schlesinger or Eli?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, I can't even barely even say her name.
yeah, it's difficult, but yeah, those are my favorites. Probably Jim Gaffigan being my absolute favorite.
That's cool. So, okay, so your style is more so. Well, you said your material is mainly just clean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like think of it as like super clean, but it just happens to be that way where I don't like
It's not
necess-
It's just not raunchy. It's not
yeah,
like
I'm not
raunchy
gonna
and
like
yeah,
yeah, I'm not gonna be crude or like raunchy. It's just not who I am. But and like I curse in everyday life, but I don't necessarily curse that much in my stand up. It's mostly just like, I don't know, varied topics. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like clean comedy could sound like dorky or something, and I'm
no,
not like that. I just whatever. I
I
don't even
mean,
know.
I've listened to both, and I've also heard that clean is from. I mean, from what I've been told, clean is much more difficult to do because it's just easy to go out and say, F this, or I did that, or I did, and get all really dirty. That's easy, but to
To me, that would be difficult. Like I was
yo,
saying, it wouldn't be difficult to curse a lot. Like, sure, that's easy. But
yeah,
if you're like a writer, I feel like there's so many words in the English language. Like, I'm trying to be smart or like intelligent. Like, I do curse some. Like, I'm not against cursing. Like, I curse
yeah.
a lot in everyday life. It's just like,
You're just
um,
like, does this need to be in my comedy? Like, is it absolutely necessary?
yeah, like it's more about like the other content. Like, what are you actually saying? I love stand-up comedy for making like social points, like talking about society and like having people listen to you, because I've always had like commentary and like observations I want to point out. And I feel like it's such a good platform for that, because like, okay, now people have to listen to what I have to say about this interesting point. I try to like, sometimes I talk about music. I think that's maybe a little bit original because I don't hear a lot of people doing that.
No.
Um, but I love Jim Gaffigan's special. He had one all about food. I just thought it was hysterical.
Like I thought your thing about Coldplay was funny.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It's about music. Yeah, you're right. A lot of comics don't talk about music, or I don't hear them talk about music a lot.
Yeah.
And that's nice.
Well,
'Cause
that
it's
was,
it's nice and that's different too. Because I really don't hear comics talking about music. Period. I really don't.
yeah. Well, I like also, play the piano and like grew up in a really musical household. So I think a lot about music and stuff.
That's cool. Your I want to ask your actually pre-recorded. I try to be prepared. I pre-recorded an outro, and I mentioned your the link to the Bandcamp, the link to your
Oh, thanks.
So I would like, how long did that? How do I ask this? How long did it take to come up with all that? Like, because you said you don't
Um,
actually write. I mean, do you write anything down at all just so you remember it, or you just record
yeah,
it
I
to
do
kind of?
write. I write some bits out fully.
Yeah.
Other stuff I just write like the topic or the name of the bit, I guess. That was mostly like my first year of material, I guess. And then my boyfriend had a bunch of like home recording equipment, and he's pretty skilled at recording. So he offered to do that, which was awesome. So yeah, it's just like all my material I had at that time, and now I have a bunch of new material. So
So I guess you say it took you a while to like come up with all of that,
um,
or
I don't know how long it took. Like it just kind of evolved naturally. Like
yeah.
during that year, I had that amount of material. I think I had more. I didn't do everything on that album.
That's a question I like to ask. 'Cause I'm always like, oh, I hear of comments like, oh, I was working on this for like 3 years. Oh, this took me 3 months. I mean, I'm always
Yeah,
curious,
I
like,
don't.
how long did it take you to come up with all that material? It's just something I like to ask.
I think the material all like evolved over 6 to 8 months, um, and then I just recorded that album like a few months later.
That's that's awesome. I just and I think too but every musician I know has some kind of inkling of recording equipment or you know because I used to play. I mean, I still play, just not as not. I may pick up my guitar or bass like once a month. But it's like in high
Mm-hmm.
school, I was like in bands and stuff, and now I'm just like, I'm getting older, and
Yeah,
I don't have the energy to do it. But like every musician's always like,
it's
oh,
hard.
use this. We were always looking at the music shop, looking at like recording equipment or like microphones, stuff like that. So that's
Yeah, I
really
don't know anything about that stuff. It seems so difficult to me. I'm like, I
that's
don't even want to learn it. It's like, oh, another thing I have to learn. Like,
that's really cool though that you have him to help with that.
yeah, it was kind of a nice opportunity. I kind of like had been hoping that I would meet someone for basically a decade who would record my music because I used to write music and sometimes still do.
Hmm.
And I secretly had in the back of my mind, maybe like I'll know someone who has this and they'll magically offer to.
Yeah,
And then like finally 10 years later, I was like, oh, okay, that only took a decade, but that's cool.
yeah. That's I never really I never really, meet anybody who's into what I'm into. I
Hmm.
was, in high school, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do the whole band thing. I remember being like, because everybody in my school was like a guitar player, and there was like two drummers in the entire high school. Everybody played guitar, and I started playing bass just to be in a band because there were no bass players, and I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm in a band. I'll easily get a girlfriend. Nope, nope. It was all the other guys. I was just the bass player. It's like that movie, That Thing You Do. He's referred to as the bass player.
Oh yeah, but bass is cool. It's a really cool instrument,
I mean, I think so, but I used to
especially
love.
like slap bass. Like people make all those funky sounds. Like
I
it's
know.
hard.
I wish I could do that. I can't. Like I tried. It's incredibly difficult. That would take like
Yeah.
years of practice. But I'm just, it's nice, and I'm just, as I get older, I'm just like, I'm not getting rid of them, but I don't play them enough. I still love
I feel
listening.
like
I still love listening to music. I just don't really have much of a desire to play anymore. I mean, I still do, but just not as much as I used to.
yeah, practicing an instrument is hard. Like it takes a lot of dedication to learn stuff. It's not easy. Like I noticed that doing comedy, it's like, wow, this is a lot easier than music. Music, you have to be really vulnerable. Comedy, you can kind of hide behind like humor. You don't have to like be as vulnerable, I guess. That's
Yeah,
kind of nice. Although some people might argue that. But like music, you have to be like so sincere and like it just seems like really you're like wide open for like criticism and
hmm
I don't know. Comedy, it's like already a defense mechanism for people. So you could just like make a joke if something doesn't work out.
yeah. I've actually heard that before. The whole defense mechanism thing. Like going back to what you said, where you say during the open mic days, where you said you heard some comics, you're like, oh, this is bad. Like I can totally do this. Like if they're up there doing it and this is like that terrible, I should have no problem doing it. Was that kind of like your
Yeah.
mindset?
Yeah. Um, yeah, because I put a lot of pressure on myself. Like it has to be like really, really good. Like I would get hung up on like I can't do it because like what do you say in between bits? What if you're just like, so next thing? Like, and I just would have these weird mental hangups and then like it doesn't even matter. You just go to the next bit. It's not a big deal at all.
So you'd kind of like, that's kind of like, I would probably be getting up in my head, like, how do I transition to this? How do I transition to that? And
Right.
you're saying you don't
That's
really,
what
you're
stopped me
saying
from
you
doing
don't,
it.
you're just saying you really don't even need to worry about doing that. Just go to the next
No.
one.
I was like being such a perfectionist about it. And then I was like, wait, people are like reading notes on stage. Like it's not that intense. Like it doesn't need to be like amazingly perfect.
Yeah. Like just what's like airtight or something. You said like perfect. And I went to I'm in Virginia and I went to a comedy show at the end of, I want to say, was it August? End of July or August, and it was, socially distanced indoors.
Mm-hmm.
And every comic had like a little piece of note paper with them. Just
Mm-hmm.
not to be perfect, just because a lot of them are like rusty because they can't perform as often. And if you have a little piece of paper and you're occasionally looking down on it, I think that's fine. Like I honestly, even this, you know, to me that says, hey, I'm not perfect. And it was kind of cool to just like see him carry out a small little piece of paper and like put it on the
That's
floor,
nice that
and
that's nice that you think of it that way. Like that's the thing I don't know if I could do like a whole hour without having a cheat sheet. Like memorizing the order because I have a lot of shorter stuff. So I'd have
Mhm.
to memorize like 40 different topics and their order. That's really difficult. If you just had like a thing where you could be like, okay, this is the next topic to talk about. I don't think that's a big deal. But yeah, I don't think it looks that good, but knowing that it's acceptable is nice because there's less pressure.
Yeah, I mean, at least it didn't bother me, and I think anybody, anybody who at least, I guess, educates himself, or like, and I only know this because like I'll watch other podcasts and other interviews, and it's like a lot of there would be a lot of people that just, who aren't really familiar with comedy, that will go to the show and say they'll like see them with a little piece of note paper and they're like, what are they doing? Why do they have notes? And they'll be like almost like disgusted, but I kind of,
Yeah.
and I've
It's
heard,
hard to memorize
yeah,
like
I've heard
the
comics say
order of
like,
stuff.
like I go from doing X amount of shows a week to doing maybe 2 or 3 a week, or even 2 or something, and it's like I don't. They get rusty, and plus there's all this stuff, and you know, uh, I think it's like the comic the comic that's that performs in the middle is what the feature, and the host is
Mm-hmm.
one that starts off with the feature. He, I think, went for maybe between 30 and 40 minutes. He had notes, and the headliner had notes too.
Wow.
The headliner had notes, and he would look down at them occasionally, and I'd like, okay, that's cool. I mean, I've heard stories like of people in the city like literally doing several like gigs a night, and they go from
Mm-hmm.
doing that to, like I said, like once or twice a week. And plus, I've heard like in New York, like pretty much everything's shut down. There's gigs like on rooftops now, out in parks, and
Mm-hmm.
I would love to go to one of those. There's nothing like that here in Virginia.
Mm.
I mean, I don't, at least any outdoor gigs nearby me that I know of. I've only been to New York once, and I
Mm.
went to the city, and it was like really crappy weather. And I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. What
And
area of Virginia are you in?
I'm about 30 minutes south of DC.
Okay. Are you
So,
near like Charlottesville or no?
Charlottesville, I'm probably about maybe about an hour.
Oh, okay.
About an
But I
hour.
mean, if you're close to DC, there's probably a lot of shows there.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how often. Like, I know there's the DC Improv. They'll occasionally do an outdoor gig, but I think the last one they had, it was like it was in the evening. It was really cold, and I think like the weather was like the low would be like 30 something. I'm like, no, I'm not sitting
Yeah, who's
outside
going
and like
outside?
30-degree. No, like I
No.
would, but I'm like, I'd love to go like at the beginning of the pandemic. I'd love to go to one of these outdoor gigs, like when it's like mid 50s or 60 and like the sun's
Yeah.
out, or that's when I'd like to go to one, or at least when it's warm outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so do I mean I'm guessing naturally. I don't know what things are fully like in New York, but I mean, I'm hoping things, start opening up again. I've heard a lot of places just straight up closed because they just lost the business and they can't keep the doors open. And
Mm-hmm.
that's horrible. But I mean, like, and this is going to sound so silly, but like do you ever at least I know, doing anything in front of anybody, I have like incredible stage fright. Like, do you ever get like nervous before you?
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
So that
Yeah, I get
could.
nervous. Like like my heart will race and like everything speeds up. But then I started doing a lot of Zoom shows, and the more I did, like that kind of went away.
Mhm.
But with actual being on stage, I definitely get more of that, and it's really annoying. I'd love to like train my body to not have that like reaction because it sucks. Like it's the worst feeling. Like I guess the adrenaline is nice, but like I could do without it. I don't want to sit there like all like fidgety and like it's just I just want to like chill out, relax, like just be relaxed the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's like your body is so like mentally I'm not nervous, but like physically it just like your body knows you're about to be in a situation like that and it acts, and I'd love to be able to be like, no, this is fine. We don't need to like speed everything up right now. It's fine.
Yeah, like I remember when like I'd be in a band and we go to play shows and stuff, like I'd be like freaking out cuz like just being even in class having to do like present a project or something, I hated talking in front of
Mm,
anybody. Like it's like I'm like a clam, like I go in like a shell, like I just can't
yeah.
like can somebody stand in front of me? Like I can't. So I'd
I used to kind of like doing those because I was actually like a pretty quiet teenager and kid, but I
mhm,
feel like I did well. I actually felt like I did better than other people doing those presentations.
mhm.
And because it was like so quiet, it was kind of nice to show off that skill, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's nerve wracking. It's like deterred me from doing comedy sometimes because it's like, I don't want to feel all that. Like, gross. I'm trying to get rid of any anxiety in my entire life. Why would I want to add more? Like, geez, this is self-induced. Like, no thanks.
I don't want to feel that. It's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like why. Yeah, why would I purposefully make myself more nervous?
Yeah. And it's like it's so physical. It's not just like mental anxiety that like doesn't manifest like with your heart racing, but like all that's it just makes it way more like annoying. But the more you do it, it does dissipate. It does get better.
And doing like the Zoom thing, I would. Does that kind of help it a little bit? I mean, because you're still in front of people, just
Yeah, the first
virtually.
time I did a Zoom show, I got really nervous. Like, and in my head, I was like, this is absurd. It's like, it's Zoom. Like, it's not a big deal. That's what I'm saying. You can have all those thoughts. And I
Hmm.
wasn't even like mentally nervous. It was more just like my body knew and it reacted.
I can. I mean, I know I would even get nervous virtual, but like you said, the idea of it is absurd. Like it's over a computer screen. Like what's the
Yeah.
worst that can
It's low
happen?
risk. Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? Um. Well,
Well, I get nervous about like forgetting stuff.
yeah,
Um,
I can see that.
But the good thing about Zoom comedy is that you can have a cheat sheet and no one knows except if they listen to me right now, then they'll know. And
Yeah.
you can put it at eye level so that no one like so it doesn't look like you're looking down. It's just like right there in front of you. And
That
it's like it's a nice little safety net.
that is cool though. I would 100% do that if I were doing it.
Yeah. I have no shame about it because like I have it memorized. It's just the order, like I said.
Yeah, it's like
I just have like the main word written down.
I would see there's no reason why you couldn't. I mean, I would print it out in like big bold letters on like a poster board, just put it on the wall behind the computer, you know? So
I wish you could do that on stage, but it's not really that feasible.
Or have like one of those teleprompters or something.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Well, that's really all I have. Thank you so much for doing this.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks for taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm glad your computer didn't blow up and stuff.
Yeah, me too. That would have been bad. Bye, take care.
That concludes this week's episode of Life's a Bit with Larry Mullins. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate the support. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. Or if you're listening, please rate and write a review. Follow the pod on all social media at Life's a Bit Pod. And also follow Emma on Instagram at Emma._Paxton. That's Emma._Paxton. You can also visit empcomedy.bandcamp.com to listen to her album. Again, thanks everybody. We'll catch you next Friday. Love you all.